Welcome to the Fall 2020 Ladies Big Book Study Recording Series. My name is Kimberly and I am a recovered alcoholic. I am the facilitator of a tri-weekly Big Book Study for ladies only, and we record each session so we can share the knowledge along with you. What we do is we read the Big Book of Alcoholics Anonymous line by line. We pause on each page and have discussion time to share our experience, our strength, and our hope on each page. You are more than welcome to follow along in this series and do the work of the steps of the Big Book of Alcoholics Anonymous. If you do need support at any time, please reach out to me in the Contact Us area of my YouTube channel, and we're happy to provide you with support. The online recordings are open to men and women. Do not be discouraged, gentlemen. Our ladies' point of view may offer you a different perspective. So welcome. I hope you enjoy. All right, ladies, continuing on in the Big Book of Alcoholics Anonymous, we have just discussed our reservations and lurking notions. If you're following along at home and you do have any questions, please reach out to your sponsor, a temporary sponsor, or you can reach out to me if you have any questions. Page 33, halfway down. Young people may be encouraged by this man's experience to think that they can stop, as he did, on their own willpower. We doubt if many of them can do it, because none will really want to stop. And hardly one of them, because of the peculiar mental twist already acquired, will find he can win out. Several of our crowd, men of 30 or less, had been drinking only a few years, but they found themselves as helpless as those who had been drinking for 20. To be gravely affected, one does not necessarily have to drink a long time nor take the quantities some of us have. This is particularly true of women. Potential female alcoholics often turn into the real thing and are gone beyond recall in a few years. Certain drinkers, who would be greatly insulted if called alcoholics, are astonished at their inability to stop. We, who are familiar with the symptoms, see large numbers of potential alcoholics among young people everywhere, but try and get them to see it. Great little paragraphs there, speaking both of women, but also of young alcoholics. Now, a lot of the time, I've heard people in their late 40s or their early 40s, and they're like, oh, you're only 20. You couldn't possibly be an alcoholic. Bullshit. I was an alcoholic at 16. The first time I drank, I had the allergy. Did I know it? No. Do not judge someone else's alcoholism, and do not compare your alcoholism to someone else. We are all different. All you need to do is self-diagnose yourself, and if someone tells you that they're an alcoholic, don't try to convince them they are not. Please. Now we'll get to the ladies. Of course, women, we do things better, always. And so, of course, we're going to be better at being alcoholic. It could do with our physical makeup. Our hormones as well are a lot different than men, but for whatever reason, our stature is smaller. We quickly become alcoholic, sometimes faster than the men. I've also, me again being a stats girl, I was an analyst for years, I've noticed that a lot of the health troubles that women have are similar in alcoholics. I've found a lot of alcoholic women who have endometriosis or other lady reproductive issues, as well as thyroid issues. I'm not sure if it's related. I would be loving to hear from the scientific community on that, but that's just me being that analytic mind where I notice trends like that. And I've talked to a lot of alcoholic women who tend to have those same problems, which are rooted in hormones, which might explain why we become alcoholic quicker. But I wish they'd do more research into that, but I'm not in charge of research people, unfortunately. So yes, anyone want to speak on alcoholic being young alcoholic or on female alcoholics before we keep reading? Nope. Okay, age 34. As we look back, we feel we had gone on drinking many years beyond the point where we could quit on our own willpower. If anyone questions whether he has entered this dangerous area, let him try leaving liquor alone for 1 year. If he is a real alcoholic and very far advanced, there is scant chance of his success. In the early days of our drinking, we occasionally remained sober for a year or more, becoming serious drinkers again later. Though you may be able to stop for a considerable period, you may yet be a potential alcoholic. We think few to whom this book will appeal can stay dry for anything like a year. Some will be drunk the day after making their resolutions, most of them within a few weeks. For those who are unable to drink moderately, the question is how to stop altogether. We are assuming, of course, the reader desires to stop. Whether such a person can quit upon a non-spiritual basis depends upon the extent to which he has already lost the power to choose, or whether he will drink or not. Many of us felt we had plenty of character. There was a tremendous urge to cease forever, yet we found it impossible. This is the baffling feature of alcoholism as we know it. This utter inability to leave it alone, no matter how great the necessity or the wish. How then shall we help our readers determine to their own satisfaction whether they are one of us? The experiment of quitting for a period of time will be helpful, but we think we can render an even greater service to alcoholic sufferers and perhaps the medical fraternity. So we shall describe some of the mental states that precede a relapse into drinking, for obviously this is the crux of the problem. Great page talks a little bit of what we talked about before we started reading. But if he is a real alcoholic and very far advanced, there is scant chance of success. Now we hear people talking about real alcoholics and not real alcoholics. It doesn't effing matter. We're alcoholics. The difference is, it talks about it in that next paragraph, whether or not they're going to be able to stop without this spiritual program. So I am a real alcoholic. What that means is I have the allergy and I have the malady. I cannot stop without a spiritual solution. But it talks in this paragraph about people who haven't gotten that far. Does that mean they're non-alcoholic? No. It means they're not as far advanced as I am. Does that mean that you can't stop now? No. Our book talks about this example many, many times. You don't have to stop before you get as bad as we were. But what will happen is your disease will progressively keep getting worse. So when you do pick up, you're going to be worse than you were when you put the booze down. Ladies have this great advantage where we can see this in our lives if we've ever had children. If you were able to stop drinking for 9 months while you were pregnant and then you started drinking again, how many times did you hear this phrase? Oh, your tolerance is just low. No, I was dry for 9 months and now I drank again and my disease kept progressing. My tolerance wasn't low. My alcoholism progressed. So while I was off the alcohol while I was pregnant, I didn't actually last my pregnancies. I've talked about that before. By the grace of God, there's nothing wrong with my children. But when you're separated from alcohol for a period of time, your disease keeps progressing, even though you're not drinking. But here it talks about that guy. He has plenty of character. Somebody who doesn't have the allergy or who doesn't have both the malady and the allergy, they may be able to stop for reasons like the gentleman on the previous page that became a workaholic. You can tell the difference between those people and those people who have stopped and have a program. They're not happy. They're grumpy as hell. You see it in the rooms. I've been in Alcoholics Anonymous for 30 years and blah, 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 blah. Miserable old bugger. They're not using a spiritual solution. People who are separated from alcohol and using a spiritual solution typically are happier folks. Haven't found a grumpy recovered alcoholic yet. Just me. Maybe you have. I haven't. But you hear it. They're miserable. Yeah, they don't have booze, but they're complaining about the state of the nation and all the other stuff that they possibly could. So there is the trick at the bottom, and throughout that page, if you want to diagnose yourself and you're not sure, try to quit for a year. A year. How's about, January 1st, I'm not going to drink for January. The evening you're friggin' drinking. I don't know about you, but I couldn't go a week, let alone try to say I'm not going to drink for a whole year. If anybody in this room can think that they can stop for a whole year, props to you, but that's not the type of girl I am. And then, of course, at the bottom, it reemphasizes that the experiment of quitting for a period of time to see. And we're going to go on to talk about the things that precede a relapse. Might be good page to look at. What precedes a relapse? Anybody want to speak on page 34? Anybody try to quit for a year? Have any success? Diana, go ahead, love.
It took me a minute. Thank you. I'm learning so much. Sorry. I did 1, 2, 3. What's astounding me right at this moment is that I could be dry, but my alcoholism is still growing, I think is what you were saying. I believe it. I agree with it, but wow, I'm just 4 months and about a week sober, and I just love. I'm sorry, I just love this so much. But yeah, I didn't stop when I was pregnant. Whatever. I was alcoholic. So, and by the grace of her, he's fine. We had asthma when he was young, whatever. But I can't go guilt over it. I'm still discovering and learning that I have a disease and what the extent of that disease is, and I'm so appreciative to be here. So I'm gonna just shut up and listen now. Thank you.
Absolutely, yeah, absolutely. Yeah, you think of it like if someone's diagnosed with diabetes or cancer, even if they don't treat it, they still have diabetes and cancer, and it still progresses in their body. Our disease is the exact same as that, 100%. Evelyn.
Hi. I'm Evelyn's sponsor, Suzanne.
Hi.
Hi. And I really love this study that we're doing. I'm 74 years old. I came into the program when I was 37, and I stayed. And but let me go back. When I was 26 years old, after the birth of my second child, I had a nervous breakdown. And I spent 6 weeks on Franklin 5 in Morristown, New Jersey. And when I came out, I didn't feel any better. I was on psychotropic drugs. And my mother was taking care of my youngest child, who was about a year old. And so I drank. I would sneak out, go to the packaged liquor store, and I went into a church and I drank. I did this for 2 weeks, and then I got caught. So anyway, I was not, my husband, we didn't have any alcohol in the house at that time, and I couldn't get out to get any. So what I had to do, and this was for 3 years, I ate more. I gained, I don't know how much weight, and my smoking increased, and I was just miserable, irritable, and discontent, and and restless. And by the grace of God, I made it into these. I pick up. I did start drinking again after 3 years, and it was as if I had never stopped. And I was one of those who never took the morning drink. However, I did take Valium. And I got into this program in 1984 by the grace of God because I had a son. My oldest son had just come back from rehab. And my life was unmanageable because I thought I could control him. But I also realized that my drinking was not normal. Now, did I think I was an alcoholic? I wasn't sure, but I did get to a meeting because I knew that eventually I would pick up a drink. And this was 2 weeks after he came back from rehab. And so I went to my first meeting, and then, but I will tell you this. In the beginning, the first 3 months, I was defiant. I was rebellious. And the people at my home group women's meeting told me, let us love you until you can love yourself. And that's exactly what happened. It took me a while. They kept saying, there is a light at the end of the tunnel. And, back then they used to give a pin, a 90-day pin. Well, I got my pin at 5.5 months. And it was explained to me back then that you didn't have to drink every day to be an alcoholic. And I drank weekends and a couple nights during the week. Oh, yeah. And if there was a holiday and I was having company, I'd drink in the afternoon before the company arrived. And then I would pass out after dinner. And my husband and usually my mother would end up cleaning up, doing the dishes. I'd wake up the next day and wonder where everybody went. So anyway, I'm just so grateful. And although, I've been around for a long time and I've gone through this big book many times, I'm really enjoying this study with you, Kim. It means so much to me. And thank you so much for doing it.
Thank you so much. I absolutely love doing it myself. Fern.
Hi, everyone. I'm Fern, and I'm an alcoholic.
Hey, Fern.
I just wanted to speak about the illness or the damage that alcohol does to our bodies. And I remember trying to stop drinking because I'd heard, I was watching the Oprah show and she was doing a whole series on alcoholism. And the first time, it happened around the same time that I was in a small community and there was a nurse and she put on a Women's Day, for a health Women's Day, and we had to fill out a sheet. And I'm not sure how old I was, but anyway, I'd been drinking a long time and my drinking had definitely escalated. And I didn't see it until I put down on my sheet that how many drinks do you have a day? And I put 2. And that was the first time I was aware of lying. Of course it wasn't 2, but that is the big lie we tell ourselves, or tell other people. We don't think other people can see it. But it took me 7 years after that to stop drinking. I journaled the whole time, so I actually know what that whole process was, the fighting of myself and not really believing how sick I was and how that addiction, how strong it was. And I would try to get better, and my health was gradually deteriorating until at 57 I came into the program because, and not because I wanted to, but because my doctor, it was really strongly recommended. And it took me 3 years in sobriety to actually get my physical health back. By then it had done a lot of damage. One of the craziest things I did was buy a detox kit at the health food store and then drink after instead of cleansing my body. Anyway, I'm glad to be here. Glad you guys are here. And it is my 12th year birthday today.
Oh, happy birthday! That's amazing.
To be sober.
Congratulations.
Congratulations.
Nice.
Oh, that's fantastic.
Congratulations.
Yay. Yay.
Yeah, you gotta love that doctor questionnaire. How many drinks do you have in a week? I'm like, a week? I'm like, oh, normal people have a good answer for that. Ooh, whoopsies. Congratulations on 12 years, Fern. That's awesome. Okay, page 35. Good page, because guess what? They're going to describe some of the mental states that precede a relapse into drinking. That's probably a good thing to know. I just dropped my pen. What sort of thinking dominates an alcoholic who repeats time after time the desperate experiment of the first drink? Friends who have reasoned with him after a spree which has brought him to the point of divorce or bankruptcy are often mystified when he walks directly into a saloon. Why does he? Of what is he thinking? We're coming up to my 3 favorite men in the book. The first is Jim. Our first example is a friend we shall call Jim. This man has a charming wife and family. He inherited a lucrative automobile agency. He had a commendable World War record. He is a good salesman. Everybody likes him. He is an intelligent man, normal so far as we can see, except for a nervous disposition. He did no drinking until he was 35. In a few years, he became so violent when intoxicated that he had to be committed. On leaving the asylum, he came into contact with us. We told him what we knew of alcoholism and the answer we had found. He made a beginning. His family was reassembled and he began to work as a salesman for the business he had lost through drinking. All went well for a time, but he failed to enlarge his spiritual life. To his consternation, he found himself drunk a half-dozen times in rapid succession. On each of these occasions, we worked with him. He agreed he was a real alcoholic and in a serious condition. He knew he faced another trip to the asylum if he kept on. Moreover, he would lose his family, for whom he had a deep affection. So Jim sounds like a lot of people that come into the rooms of Alcoholics Anonymous. You know, I'm not that bad. My life is good. I've got a great wife. I've got a great family. I had a great career. He's got a little bit of a nervous disposition. What does that sound like now? I have anxiety. What is anxiety? Fear. So in a few years, he became so violent when intoxicated, he had to be committed. On leaving the asylum, he came into contact with us. So he left the asylum and he got introduced to Alcoholics Anonymous. And this is a very interesting story, and you hear it in the rooms of Alcoholics Anonymous a lot. We told him what we knew of alcoholism. So he had this disease explained to him. He was told about the allergy and the malady of the mind. He knew about his disease. He made a beginning. Now, if anybody has been in my big book study before, they know what the beginning is, because we hear it over and over and over again as we read the book. The steps are your beginning. This is a beginning. This is a beginning. He made a beginning. We hear this word beginning over and over and over again as we go through this process. The steps are a beginning. There is no period after the I did a set of steps. It's like learning the alphabet. You learn the letters, and then you take the letters and you use them and you make words and sentences and you figure out your stuff and you live it. The steps are only a beginning. His family was reassembled and he got a job. Who's heard that shared at a meeting of Alcoholics Anonymous? I went to treatment. I learned about alcoholism and addiction. I did a set of steps. I got my job back. My family's not mad at me. The promises are coming true. No, you just did a set of steps and stopped drinking for 2 months. Welcome to Alcoholics Anonymous. Sit down, pay attention, and learn some more. That's what I would really like to say. But that's what we hear. We hear this story a lot. What happened? He failed to enlarge his spiritual life. If you've heard me share, if you've been here before, you know what I'm talking about. Page 15 of the Big Book of Alcoholics Anonymous tells us what happens. Well, let's look. Go back to page 15. It starts on the bottom of 14, and it says, "For if an alcoholic failed to perfect and enlarge his spiritual life through work and self-sacrifice for others, he could not survive the certain trials and low spots ahead." I saw Diana's mouth drop and hit the floor on that one. So what does this mean? This means at the end of the sentence, I did a set of steps. There's a comma, not a period. I did a set of steps, and then I enhanced my spiritual life through work and self-sacrifice for others. Step 12, service. And guess what happens? You're able to survive the certain trials and low spots ahead. Ding, 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 ding. So that's what Jim didn't do. That's what a lot of people in the rooms of Alcoholics Anonymous miss. And that's a big, big red flag. If you hear someone in a meeting of Alcoholics Anonymous and they're like, "Yeah, I just got out of treatment. I'm 60 days sober and life's great. I got my job back. My wife's not beating me up anymore. And oh, it's great." Are you working this program of action in your life? Well, I'm going to think about doing a step 4. Well, I'd get that done real quick. 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. Let's live in 10, 11, 12 and apply these principles in all our affairs and pass it on to others. That is how we grow. That is how we stay sober. And what we will read in the rest of the book is working with others guarantees us immunity from alcoholism. I'm a recovered alcoholic. I have recovered bodily and mentally from my hopeless condition of mind. I am no longer suffering from alcoholism. Am I cured? No, I am not. Will I ever be cured? No, I will not. Do I have an immunity that I've built up through all of this service work that I've done? Damn skippy I have. Right? Reading big books, taking calls, doing the work, volunteering in my home group, being of service, general service. Immunity to alcoholism. Similar if you take your vitamins every day. All right, let's talk about it. Please.
Hi. Sorry I came late. I had a long-winded client, but glad to be here. I was like, okay, yes. But glad to be here. So this talk speaks to me so much because relapsed after 26 years of sobriety and 10 years, almost 10 years to the date of the death of my daughter. So white knuckled it for 10 years because I totally gave up on God. And almost 12 years after the suicide of my sister. So it was like almost all put together, but stay sober, but completely let go of enlarging my spiritual life. And I would say that, in those 10 years, I was like the drop-in AA woman because I was traveling a lot for work. So work became my addiction and kept me sober, but insane, completely insane.
And so, when I read this, and like I do a lot of service right now, and I bring women through the big book continuously now. And when I read this page, I was a salesperson. I know this guy. I know him. I know that glass of like milk and put some whiskey in it. That's not insanity. That is total sanity. When you're in so much pain and you are totally like not in the program, it is totally sanity. And I'm so grateful that you're here. And I'm so grateful that, I'm one of the chosen ones that were able to come back into the room. So thank you.
Thank you so much. Oh, yeah, if you think our insanity sounds sane, you're welcome to be here. If you want someone to co-sign someone, go to insane people. We're like, oh, yeah, that sounds like a great plan. Oh, yeah. Like, oh, no. All right, let's hear what happens to Jim. I bet you know what's coming. Yet he got drunk again. We asked him to tell us exactly how it happened. This is his story. I came to work on a Tuesday morning. I remember I felt irritated that I had to be a salesman for a concern I once owned. I had a few words with the boss, but nothing serious. Then I decided to drive into the country and see one of my prospects for a car. On the way, I felt hungry, so I stopped at a roadside place where they have a bar. I had no intention of drinking. I just thought I would get a sandwich. I also had the notion that I might find a customer for a car at this place, which was familiar, for I'd been going to it for years. I had eaten there many times during the months I was sober. I sat down at a table and I ordered a sandwich and a glass of milk. Still no thought of drinking. I ordered another sandwich and decided to have another glass of milk. Suddenly, the thought crossed my mind that if I were to put an ounce of whiskey in my milk, it couldn't hurt me on a full stomach. I ordered a whiskey and I poured it into the milk. I vaguely sensed I was not being any too smart, but I felt reassured as I was taking the whiskey on a full stomach. The experiment went so well, I ordered another. And I poured it into more milk. It didn't seem to bother me, so I tried another. Thus started one more journey to the asylum for Jim. Here was the threat of commitment, the loss of family and position, to say nothing of that intense mental and physical suffering which drinking always caused him. He had much knowledge about himself as an alcoholic, yet all reasons for drinking were easily pushed aside in favor of the foolish idea that he could take whiskey if only he mixed it with milk. Great idea. I have a friend and her cat's names are Whiskey and Milk. It's adorable. So let's talk about that first paragraph. So, yep, he went to work on a Tuesday morning. And as everyone likes to always point out, what happened to Monday? Whoops, missed that one. I used to miss Mondays all the time, right? And then we've got a lot of things that pop out at me here. He's irritated. He's got a resentment, which is tied in with some ego, that he has to be a salesman at this business he used to own. Don't you know? He used to be the boss. So he's got a little bit of ego / resentment. And then, of course, he's got, what do we got here? He's discontent. He had a few words with his boss. So he's gotten into it with his boss. And off he runs. He's restless. So have you ever heard that before? Restless, irritable, and discontent. He's got all that. Oh, he's hungry. So there we've got hungry, angry, lonely, tired. So he's probably tired too if he's showing up on a Tuesday after missing Monday. But, it doesn't say that. So let's not read into it too much. We'll just leave him with hungry, irritated, discontent, and restless. And of course, he tries a little bit of a geographical turn here too, right? Because he's like, screw this. I'm not sticking around this place. I'm out. I'm going for a drive in the country because that's going to clear my head. I'm going to find a prospect out there. off he goes. And you can just imagine him, right? Like just ripping through the country because he's just in a tizzy. So then he goes and he gets this sandwich and this glass of milk. Pop wasn't huge back then, so, milk was a little bit more of a beverage that you would have with a sandwich. I think it sounds disgusting, the amount of milk he drank in this story. My stomach goes, ugh. But, who doesn't know that drinking on a full stomach is the solution, right? Like, come on now. I know this trick. What he didn't do was he didn't drink the water in between. That's the problem, right? Of course. So he has this great idea that whiskey would go good in the milk because he's got this sandwich in his stomach. And well, he's off to the asylum. No big surprise there. But, we have to look at what he did wrong and what he was suffering from. So what he did wrong was he made his beginning. He failed to enlarge his spiritual life. He didn't heed the warnings of the other alcoholics who told him about the disease of alcoholism. And, the promise of step 1 is if we are untreated, we are going to drink again. That is the nature of our illness. And then that restless, irritable discontent on a Tuesday morning while you're hungry. It's a recipe for disaster for Jim. He was trying to get sober based on what? Self-will, self-knowledge, and fear. And we've learned in our reading all along, self-knowledge, self-will, and fear avail us nothing. So, Trish, you had your hand up first.
Hi, I'm Trish and I'm an alcoholic. The milk part, I knew an old timer back in the day. And I can't say, nobody can say who's an alcoholic and who's not, but he used to drink vodka and milk. And he drank it until he was like in his late 90s. But that doesn't mean he was trying to have food in him. I just think he had really bad stomach problems, and that's how he chose to drink it besides pop. So maybe that old milk thing was from the early 1900s or something, because he was in the war, and maybe that's where they learned it from. But ew, it does sound gross, and I always thought, ew, that just But that's just my little bit. That's all I wanted to say about the milk.
Well, yeah, absolutely. And with the milk as well, you've got to think of the times. This is in the 1930s. This is between World War I, World War II. So, yep. I mean, the options at the stores are going to be way different. So milk was very common as a beverage back there. But yeah, absolutely. And you can also think of it, if you're alcoholic, what do you usually suffer from? Stomach ulcers. And that's acidic. So the milk would calm down your stomach, and so your ulcers wouldn't flare up. So, yep, another one to think of. But yeah, it sounds disgusting. Deborah,
alcoholic. There's a couple things that came to mind. One, I reset my dates in 2018 because I had a whiskey milk type of thing happen to me. However, it wasn't alcohol. It was a medication that's prescribed to me. It's not something that even gets me high. But I had this thought, it was unconscious thought that, and one of the medications I take kind of tempers my appetite somewhat as a side effect. I had this thought that I've been a little hungry lately. Maybe I should take an extra, because I used to take a higher dose years before. And it kind of helped with that. Not that wasn't why it was, I was supposed to be taking it. It just kind of slipped by. And I didn't wake up for 3 weeks later going, oh my God. After that, I automatically started putting it in my pill box with the rest of my medications. And it was like a milk and whiskey thought. It was like, oh my God, it's so easy to get off track. And so I called my sponsor, I'm like, And I said, I think, I've got a slip going on here. And she goes, yes. She goes, you called me about this like about 2 months ago, where you had done something like this before. And it totally slipped my mind and that's when I decided I had to change my dates. If I don't take the consequences for my actions, my brain will change what I've done. So so I had to, take the hit, and I doubled down my sobriety, even though at the time I was sponsoring women, going to meetings, doing all this, but underlying, I had some sort of a thing I knew was going on for a long time I wasn't willing to look at. So it's not just, you're right. If you're not in a good spiritual condition with your higher power, you're not doing it. It's not just doing what you need to do, going to meetings, working with, it's really being in constant contact with your God. And so that's my whiskey wealth, because I was like, I had no consciousness about that at all. And the other thing about, taking water or whatever, when I had relapsed in a past life, I totally stopped eating because I didn't want to have anything else in my system that would mess with my high. And so even though I liked food, it was so easy for me not to eat when I wanted to have when I wanted to have the high. So one way or the other, you take a drink so you don't get drunk, or you don't eat so you can get drunk. One or the other. Anyway, that's all I wanted to share.
Thank you
It's
so
much better doing
much.
the whole thing.
Thank you. Della, did you have your hand up? Someone in the chat said you had your hand up.
No, I was just like, suddenly, and what happened to Monday? And going out to the country to sell a car? Yeah, no, I was just like, yeah.
What's Jim doing?
Oh, Wendy.
Come on, Jim. Anne-Marie.
Hi, Anne-Marie's still an alcoholic. My uncle used to take 2 soup spoons full of oil before going out to drink, because he figured it would line his stomach and he wouldn't get drunk. But he didn't stop to think that when the oil was finally gone from the lining of his stomach and digested, all that alcohol would hit him all at once. And yet he did it over and over again. His own whiskey and milk, I guess.
Right. Yeah, the whiskey and milk is a very extreme example, but I mean, we can say we did it with lots of things. I mean, I just white wine, red wine. I'm like, if I drink red wine, I'm out. But if I drink white wine, I'm okay. Red wine makes me crazy, so I'm only gonna drink white wine. Like, no. Doesn't matter, because once the white wine's done, I'm like, well, I might as well get into the red wine now. Let's go. Or if I was angry, I was like, you're really going to get it. I'm drinking red wine tonight. I'll just show ya. All right, ladies, it's 2 minutes to noon. We're not going to read another bit because that will put us way over. So that's it for today. We will see you guys again on Friday. We will